The wind ran hard across the open land that night, pushing clouds over the moon and rattling every loose board on Ethan Cole's ranch. He had stayed up later than usual, watching the sky and listening for the drumming sound that meant rain. His fields needed it, his horses needed it, and he needed the kind of quiet that a good steady rain brings to a long day. When the first drops finally came, he pulled on his coat and hat and walked to the stable to check the doors and hang the lantern where it would not kick against a beam. His mare lifted her head when he entered, ears twitching. The gelding in the end stall stomped once and breathed out a warm fog. Ethan set the lantern on a hook and let his eyes travel across the stalls, counting out of habit. He knew his horses the way he knew the lines in his own hands. He could tell from the sound of a tail swish if a fly was biting, or from the angle a hoof pressed into straw if a shoe needed checking. Tonight something felt different. The animals were calm enough, but they watched him more closely than usual, as if waiting for him to notice what they already knew. He stepped into the center aisle and saw her. A woman lay asleep against the side of the mare's stall, knees tucked close, a thin blanket pulled around her shoulders. Her hair was long and dark, wet at the ends from the rain. Her boots were worn and scuffed. One hand rested on a small leather pouch tied by a simple cord at her neck. She did not stir at first. She was so still. He wondered if she had fainted. Then her breath moved the hair near her cheek, soft and steady. Ethan did not shout. He did not reach down in a rush. He stood for a long moment and let the first thought pass, then the second, then the third. On this land, he had learned to be careful with his own mind before he was careful with his hands. He crouched and spoke her name even though he did not yet know it. "Ma'am," he said softly. "It's cold here. There's a better place to rest." Her eyes opened. They were clear and watchful even in that first second of waking. She lifted the blanket a little, as if to shield herself from the lantern's glow. "I'm sorry," she said, voice dry from the road. "I meant to go before first light. I only needed to be out of the storm." "You came to the right door for that," he said. "I'm Ethan. This is my place. You're welcome to the bunkhouse tonight. It's warmer than a stable, even my good stable." She pushed herself to sit up, careful not to startle the mare. "Thank you," she said. "I'm Ayanna. I was walking the stage road to find work. The sky changed fast. I thought I would wait for the rain to pass. I did not plan to sleep." "You can plan again in the morning," Ethan said. He offered his hand. She looked at his fingers, rough and clean, then placed her hand in his. He helped her stand. Her boots were damp, and he could see how the leather pinched at places that should have been soft. He took the blanket's edge and shook the straw from it, then draped it back over her shoulders. "There's food on the stove in the house," he added, "and a dry bunk. You can leave at first light if you like, or later if the rain keeps on." They crossed the yard under that thin rain that smells like dust waking up. The kitchen lantern cast a ring of gold on the table. Ethan ladled stew into a bowl and set a tin cup of water beside it. Ayanna ate slowly at first, as if her stomach had to learn trust again. He sat across from her and kept his voice easy. He asked if she was warm enough. He told her where the pump stood and where to find a towel. He pointed toward the bunkhouse through the kitchen window. When she finished, he set another clean blanket across his arm and guided her to the door. "I will go before dawn," she said again, almost like a promise she owed the world. "Thank you for the food and for your good manners." "You can keep your thanks till morning," he said with a small smile. "I'll still be here then." Rain tapped the roof through the night like fingers counting time. Before sunrise, Ethan lit the stove and stepped out with a second lantern to the barn. He found Ayanna already there. The blanket from the bunkhouse was folded neat on the bench. Her sleeves were rolled up. She was talking to the skittish colt in a low, steady voice, hands moving with a calm rhythm as she checked a broken halter. The colt watched her, then dropped his head with a sigh that made Ethan smile. He had worked with that colt for weeks and had gained respect but not yet ease. Ayanna gave the colt both. "You're up early," he said. "Your colt woke with the rain," she answered. "He wanted to test the gate. I thought it better if he did not win that game. I hope I did not overstep." "That's a step I'm glad you took," Ethan said. He looked over the halter. "Her repair was clean and strong. If you'd like to stay through the day, I can pay you for your help. I have fence to mend and a hoof that needs gentler hands than mine." She hesitated. "I do not want to cause trouble for you." "You've already prevented it," he said. "I pay fair. You eat while you work. You leave when you need, and you keep your own say in your own life. That's the only way it works here. She nodded. Then I will help for the day. The morning opened into bright, honest work. They walked the fence line with a bucket of staples and a hammer, and Ayanna showed a trick for twisting wire that did not strain the wrists. She told him a story about her grandfather teaching horses without raising his voice. Ethan told her about his father's habit of naming the wind by sound. They did not trade the deepest stories, only the ones that filled the space between tasks with a simple kind of warmth. By noon, the rain had gone and the sun made steam rise from the earth. Ethan poured water from the pump and handed Ayanna a dipper. She drank and closed her eyes for a moment, as if she were learning the taste of simple water all over again. There is peace here, she said. I can hear it even when the animals are noisy. That's what I hope for, Ethan said. Word travels fast where the land is wide and days are long. By afternoon, 2 riders from town slowed their horses near the fence, tipped their hats, and watched for a beat longer than a simple greeting requires. They did not say anything unkind. They said very little at all. When they left, Ayanna watched them go with a steady gaze. I do not need to be the reason someone speaks your name in a sharp tone, she said. If they spoke it sharp, that would be their choice, he replied. You're here because the sky opened and a door did too. That seems like simple truth. The sheriff came toward evening, the kind of visit that is both friendly and official. He was a good man, old enough to have seen more seasons than he could count without thinking, young enough to ride his own patrol. He rested his hands on the saddle horn and gave Ethan a long nod. Then he turned to Ayanna and did the same. Evening, he said. Storm had me checking gates and bridges. I heard you had a guest. Evening, Ethan said. Ayanna is helping me today. She came in out of the rain. I'm paying her fare. I see that, the sheriff said. His tone held curious threads, but not hard ones. Any trouble, any worry, you'll let me know. Morning came with a pale sky and a thin drift of dust that moved like breath across the yard. Ethan stepped onto the porch and tested the air the way a man tests a rope before he leans his weight on it. The ground had drunk the storm and asked for more. He could feel the need under his boots, the way the earth gave just a little and then held. Ayanna was already at the corral, the mare's brush in her hand. She worked in quiet circles, talking to the horse in a low voice that sounded like a stream in shade. Ethan watched for a moment and then crossed the yard, coffee in one hand, a clean apple in the other. He handed her the apple. She thanked him with a small, bright smile that lit the morning more than the thin sun did. The season bent toward dry days. Wind moved over the hills and did not bring a cloud with it. The creek shrank, making new edges around old stones. Fences hummed when the wind rose. Ethan and Ayanna changed their rhythm to match the land's need. They hauled water early, set salt late, and kept the stable doors wide to let heat wander out. When the ground grows stingy, tempers sometimes grow tight in town. A shopkeeper might make a hard joke. A rider might set his hat a little lower. Ayanna noticed these small shifts and kept her gaze level. She carried herself the same way each day, with steady hands and calm steps, as if she had decided that one person's peace was still worth keeping when the air grew hot. The gelding that had troubled them before the storm began to show signs of pain. It started with a restless tail, a look toward his side, a pause between mouthfuls of hay. Ethan saw it first and felt a thread of worry pull tight in his chest. He had no wish to lose a good horse and no wish to watch a creature he cared for suffer. The nearest vet rode a wide circle and might not pass for days. Ayanna touched the gelding's neck and closed her eyes for one breath, the way a person does when they are listening with more than ears. She asked Ethan for permission to try what she knew. He gave it without asking for proof. She brewed a wash from willow bark and mint she had dried in little bundles near the kitchen window. She walked the horse slowly in the shady yard and spoke to him in soft words, letting the sound be part of the help. Ethan took turns with her, counting steps, counting breaths, letting the hours be long because the hours had to be long. Near sunset, the gelding eased. He lowered his head, sighed, and reached for hay like an old friend he had missed. Ethan stood very still and felt relief fill the spaces where fear had been. You saved him, he said. You saved my good horse. Ayanna shook her head. We gave him time and care, she answered. He did the rest. 2 days later, the sheriff rode up again, not with heat, but with a question he had to ask. He tipped his hat to Ayanna and nodded to Ethan. A traveler told a tale about someone sleeping in a stable the night of the storm, he said. Said the person had no right. I aim to keep the peace by knowing the true shape of things. Ethan did not bristle. He kept his voice even. He brought out the small ledger he had shown before. In it, he had written each day's work and pay, the way a man writes to keep his own mind clear. Ayanna told the story again, simple and exact. Rain, a door, a blanket, a bowl of stew, a choice to help the next day for fair pay. The sheriff listened, then looked at the gelding's easy breath, the tidy tools, the fixed gait. He took off his hat, wiped the brim with his thumb, and put it back on. I count this matter settled, he said. Folks talk when the ground is dry. I prefer to ride with facts. He turned to Ayanna. If anyone gives you trouble in town, you speak my name and I will speak with them. She thanked him in the calm way that was hers. As he rode off, a dust devil danced along the fence and then fell apart like a trick a child forgets. By then, a letter had reached the ranch. The kind of letter that takes its time and arrives when the day is already full. It was from the aunt Ayanna had written to, a woman who lived near a trading post where sometimes work was sure and sometimes it was not. The letter held care and welcome and also the truth that there might not be enough to share. I can make a place for you, the aunt had written in steady lines, but I cannot promise more than a roof and a say at the table. Ayanna read it twice. She carried it to the corral and read it a third time, fingers resting on the paper as if it were both a map and a mirror. Ethan did not ask for her choice. He let her own heart bring words to her mouth when it was ready. That evening she folded the letter along the old crease and tucked it into her pouch. Family is a strong pull, she said, but work that is good work and a place where you are seen as you are can pull too. The muster came late that month, a grit bright day when riders from the spread-out places brought their horses to show what they could do. Ethan had thought to sell the gelding to ease the ranch's money worries. Ayanna suggested showing the horse's new strength first, then deciding. Let people see who he is now, she said. A fair price is easier to name when a horse shows his own truth. At the muster, the gelding moved like a creek that had found its old path. He turned sharp without losing softness. He stopped like the word stop had always been a friend. People noticed. A buyer made a strong offer that would have set Ethan's ledger in the black and left room for more grain. He looked at the horse, at the line of the shoulder and the clear eye. He looked at Ayanna, who stood with her hands at her sides and her face open, not telling him what to do. He thought about the years ahead, the fence lines he had not yet mended, the colts that would learn from this gelding if the gelding stayed. He surprised himself. He said no to the offer. He said it gently and sure. Not today, he told the buyer. I am building, not breaking even. Ayanna's eyes warmed the way a banked fire warms when you open the damper. On the way home, the sky changed. Wind came from two directions at once, and the light shifted to a color that makes people look up even if they do not know why. A team ahead of them, pulling a small wagon with two children inside, began to shy at the moving sand. The driver, a young father by the look of him, leaned back hard on the lines. One wheel caught a rut and jumped. Ayanna was already moving. She put the gelding to a steady trot and drew alongside the team, her voice calm and low like the one she used with colts. Ethan rode to the far side and angled his horse so the team would find a pocket of quiet between the two riders. The wagon settled. The father found his breath and his sense again. The dust passed as quickly as it had come. The children stared with wide eyes, then laughed in that sudden way children do when fear lets go. The father thanked them until words seemed thin. You were not alone, Ethan said. We all share the road. They rode on. Stories travel even faster than riders. And by the time Ayanna and Ethan reached town the next week, someone at the feed store said, I heard you steadied a wagon in that blow. The words held more respect than they had before. The air felt easier. Back on the ranch, Ethan showed Ayanna the small corral where a fence rail had broken the night she arrived. He had repaired it long ago, but he had kept a short piece of the old rail set near the post as if to remember the weak spot that had asked for care. He pointed to it now. This is where the fence first failed, he said. I have been mending it right ever since. The sentence hung in the air with more meaning than it wore on the surface. Ayanna understood. She put her hand on the top rail and looked out at the pasture that had taught her the names of the horses and the names of the winds. Sometimes you do not need to build a new fence, she said. You need to tie the right knots and set the post straight and check it each morning. Days kept their simple shape, but the question of where Ayanna would belong did not vanish. She turned the letter over in her mind the way a person turns a stone smooth in their hand. She measured the pull of old ties against the comfort of new work, and the quiet feeling that she had stepped into a story that would not forget her. One evening, when light pooled soft and gold in the kitchen, she said, "If I chose to ride to my aunt, I would be safe for a while but unsure of the next season. If I chose to stay, I would have work and say in a path we are shaping together. What would you wish if you had any wish?" Ethan did not rush to answer. He rinsed the cups at the pump and set them upside down to dry. He dried his hands on a clean cloth and turned to face her. "I wish for you to choose what gives you a steadier heart," he said. "That is the only wish that will last. If that is here, I will be grateful all my days. If that is there, I will still be grateful for every morning you were here." It was not a speech. It was a true thing that sounded like him. Ayanna closed her eyes for one breath and opened them. "Then I choose to stay," she said. "I choose to stay as an equal, with my own say and my own work and a promise we speak out loud." They marked their choice in a way that fit them. Ethan braided a ring from the hair of the gelding they had saved. He did it on the porch at dusk, fingers working with care, one strand over, one strand under, making the small circle tight and neat. Ayanna took a thin bead from the spare strand in her pouch, a bead her aunt had given her for protection on long roads. She threaded it onto a leather tie and set it in Ethan's palm. "For the roads you will still ride," she said. "Even the road from the house to the barn is still a road." They did not rush any more words into the air. They stood together and let the quiet hold them for a while.